Here's Alex from Black Sheep IT Consulting. And before we start, quick word. This is a session that I've recorded as a kind of demo, what we want to do on the Siebel Hub for our next training. So it's all about AI-assisted coding, as you can see, but it's more than that. The training should be, the working title is AI for Siebel Professionals. And that includes, of course, people who use Siebel every day, users, people who develop Siebel, developers, and people who administer, and people who are in a Siebel project. So, and we are intending to do this together with you, our valued Siebel Hub viewer and learner. So please find the comment section of this video and tell us what you are thinking about all this, the whole AI topic. How are you using AI today with Siebel, and how you would like the training to be, and what it should integrate and what it should teach you about AI. So tell us in the comments. And now on to another version of me and on to the training. Thank you very much. Hello, here's Alex from Black Sheep IT Consulting. We are starting our series on AI-assisted coding. Notice I didn't say vibe coding for Siebel CRM. And let's just explore at the beginning what this is all about, since this is new for all of us. Well, it's not so new. We know ChatGPT is 3 years away in the past, and a lot has happened since then. And in this presentation, we are going to look at first considerations for vibe coding, and then we are taking apart the options that we have today at the time of recording, end of 2025. What are the AI use cases, especially for Siebel developers? So we are planning to do sessions on AI use cases for other cohorts of Siebel that are Siebel end users and Siebel administrators, for example, or even project members of Siebel, because AI has so many applications, and yeah, there's just so much to talk about. So we are talking about eScript assistance for AI. What are the options today? What can you do? And then we do the same for OpenUI. And then we look into the more exotic, but still very exciting things you can do with Java coding, for example, or coding external applications that connect to Siebel CRM using the Siebel REST API, for example. So yeah, the possibilities are sheer endless. We have to start somewhere. So let's start with taking a little break before we dive in and discuss vibe coding considerations, because, well, vibe coding is all the rage today, and many tons of YouTube videos where people are getting very excited about, hey, I'm just prompting this and it generates an app and I can deploy the app. And the app is typically shiny and good looking, but also typically useless beyond the original prompt, or even doesn't work. And I call it a technical debt creator. So you see my point there. But the thing is, if you try it, if you give ChatGPT or your preferred AI, mine is Claude Code to be exact. If you use that tool, start using that tool, and you prompt it to generate code, all of us have done this by now, I guess, you will be surprised, and I'm still surprised, that the contemporary LLMs that we have, 3 years after ChatGPT, they are pretty good at generating code of a very acceptable quality if the prompt is of an acceptable quality. And that's most of the time. Sometimes they get it really wrong, but most of the time it's really good code. and they apply best practices, etc. automatically. And you can always tweak it. So there's not a single prompt app. There's a lot of prompts. So yeah, that's the starting point here. And then, of course, the language of choice is important. So LLMs are stochastic word generators, finding the probable next best token, and they have a big training corpus. And the training corpus is practically the whole internet, boiled down, etc. And the more information they got in the training on the internet, on the language you want to use, then the better is the output. Garbage in, garbage out, right? So JavaScript as the lingua franca of the internet, or Java or HTML or CSS, those are extremely well documented on the web, and that is part of any modern LLM's training data. So if you work with these languages, you will have a very good time. For example, if you try Siebel eScript, which is not so extremely well documented, you will see, okay, it struggles because there's not enough substance in the training corpus. So you have to give it that substance, and we talk about that as well. So by now, I guess everybody has tried to use AI assistants with coding, either the autocomplete style assistants, Copilot in Visual Studio Code, or a development environment or an AI coding environment like Claude Code, or just prompting it on the web and getting some results back. So everybody has tried that now, and it's quickly becoming the new standard. So as a 30-year developer who has handwritten code, handcrafted code for almost 30 years, it feels a little bit like cheating, and it isn't. It isn't cheating. It's just a new tool that becomes the new standard. So as a developer, if you want to stay relevant, you have to adapt, you have to learn these new tools. So that's the new standard we live with. And there are specialized AI coding environments such as Claude Code or Codex from all major vendors. And if you haven't looked into those coding environments, they are specifically created for coding tasks, but they can also be used beyond those coding tasks. So AI coding environments or AI coding assistants or whatever you call them, these are something you should look into if you really are serious about learning AI-assisted coding and you don't want to be that vibe coder who produces technical debt by thousands of lines of code per minute. And that is the point. You can prompt any AI to churn out high quality, runnable, compilable code. But as a developer, as a programmer, you must be able to understand that output, to validate it, to correct it if it's wrong, and in order to use it effectively and responsibly. So understand, validate, and correct. That's also tasks that we as the human part in this equation have to do. Of course, we can use AI assistants, for example, in Claude Code. You can create an agent which does a security scan on the app you just vibe coded, and it will surprisingly often will turn out, okay, this is highly insecure and you shouldn't do that. Why didn't it do it in the first place? So that's the state of these tools at the time of recording. And at the time of recording, we see the worst state of these tools because they're rapidly evolving. So 1 year from now, it will be totally different. And who knows what 5 or 10 years will bring. But one thing will remain: never push code to production that you get from a third party without understanding what the code does. The third party can be a human, remember Stack Overflow, copy pasta code, or an LLM. It's a third party that produces code that you will put in a very sensitive environment, and you need to understand what the code does. If you don't have that experience as a programmer, if you don't have programming knowledge, if you don't know the language, then you are at a very high risk of introducing erroneous or even malicious or outright dangerous code. So that is the problem. Not even beginning to talk about technical debt, where you just amass code that is a problem maybe half year or 1 year from now or later. So you need to pair, and it's really like pair programming. So you pair up experienced developers who can produce high quality code already or high quality Siebel configuration, and you pair them up with AI coding tools and they get even better. As is with human pair programming. If you put two programmers together, the output will not be twice the quality, but it will be much higher quality. So yeah, put together experienced developer with AI coding tools. That's the combination that really achieves results. And AI coding tools stay what they are, a tool. A tool in the toolbox of the human developer. It's not replacing. I think we are over that. AI is not replacing developers. That's a hyperbole that is not really up to whatever facts facts or reality we live in. So you must ensure that AI created code is always applying industry practices, call it best practice or recommended practice, but there are certain standards that we want to adhere to. You wouldn't want to ship code that doesn't adhere to those standards. And one thing that is really, really super important when it comes to working with AI tools, you're very excited, you type in the prompt and the AI starts coding. Wow, there's 5 seconds later you have a piece of code. That's not how it works. Would you work that way as a human? I don't. I want to sit back and plan and design the implementation, and then, of course, write down that plan, document it, what I'm about to do. And think of AI tools, they have a short-term memory. So they are very good in one session, and then you exceed your quota, or your rate ends at the day, or it just hangs, as it happened to me, and then everything's forgotten. So you have a hard time, re-establishing that communication you had, the conversation you had. There are pretty good tools to do that, but you have to use these tools. For example, Claude Code has something called memory. So you put that in memory, you write files, and later in a later session, you can just pick up these files. The LLM has to reread these files and say, okay, that's what we talked about. So that planning document, that design document, that whole phase of planning and designing is super important. Don't skip it. Also, after that, after the fact, you have created code, create documentation using AI, of course. Do a security review, do a readiness review, etc. And always understand the data privacy and security risks. You are working most probably with a major vendor-provided AI coding environment, such as Claude Code from Anthropic or Codex from OpenAI, just to name two. And those are hosted by big vendors, and basically what they want to do is gobble up data for training the next version. And so you have those tiny little checkboxes in the privacy section of your profile, but many times they just tell you by subscribing, you are fine with us using whatever we think is good for us. And that's a high risk. So any type, any prompt, any file, etc. that you put in makes its way into the training corpus of the next model, and also makes its way across the internet to somebody else's server. So be aware of that, and don't ever submit data that is sensitive, that is customer data or whatever. Anonymize that data if you have to. create a schema of that data so that is anonymized, and be aware that your code is no longer belonging to you. If you don't want that, you have to find another way, and that is an expensive way at the time of recording. You have to find a way to run the model locally on your server or laptop. You need a very beefy machine to do that. Or your employer is hosting the AI on their own network. So that are options that are out there. In the course of this training, we will use the, for example, Claude code provided by Anthropic, and we must be fully aware that all the data that we enter is visible, is used by Anthropic for many purposes. So, yeah, that was a lot of considerations, and now we are grounded. And well, where do we start? We start with a prompt. So the first thing you have to do is understand what separates, what distinguishes a good prompt from a bad prompt. So I have this example here, which is a prompt I use to vet and assess the prowess of an LLM with Siebel eScript. And so let's start with the bad prompt. So help me find the last name of a contact. Just throw that at a person, at a human being. They will ask, what exactly do you mean? I don't know what's the context. And the context is what's all about. So here's a, well, similar bad prompt that I pasted in Claude. Give me eScript to find the last name of a contact. So at least it says eScript, but it doesn't say Siebel or anything. And the LLMs are pretty clever. So it came up with a question. Could you please clarify what platform are you using? Where's the contact data stored? What is this all about? So it's really trying to figure out what's going on. And that's a bad sign. If it comes back and asks you for clarification, then your prompt was not clear enough. And here's the JavaScript that it tried to make up, and that has nothing to do. No, that is not eScript even, so it's useless. So very bad prompt, very bad results. It's quite clear. So what's the good prompt? So the good prompt would be something like this, and of course your mileage will vary. So you have to be clear about the intent. So write code and Siebel eScript. So that should be enough context to tell it, okay, it's Siebel eScript. I have to well, look up Siebel eScript or use my knowledge in that area and tell it what exactly it has to do by formulating it like accomplishes the following. And then that's the actual implementation we want to do. We want to query the contact business component. So don't say buscomp or BC because that's ambiguous. So contact business component, it knows it's Siebel, so it knows business components. That's the similarity, the vectors, they align in your favor. Using the ID field and explain the input is a Siebel row ID and the row ID variable, and save the contact's last name in a variable. So that, of course, is a very simple eScript. You could probably, if you're an eScript developer, you could just type that. And let's see what the LLM comes up with. So here I'm in Claude, in the web application of Claude, because that's usually where you start. You go to the web, go to your favorite AI, and we're going to test a few of them. So Claude is the first one. I just copy paste this very prompt and I just run it. And let's just see what happens. So this is real time. We also see it's pretty fast. Here's Siebel eScript code that queries. And so it has a variable, contact last name. And here is, well, the business object, get bus object contact. So that looks pretty good. Get bus comp. Then we do set view mode. Okay, we do clear to query. We do, it goes for set search spec. Row ID is supposed to be populated, so it doesn't really care, doesn't really check. Okay, you see the pattern here. It does execute query forward only. It checks if there's a first record. It even did the try and catch. And finally, so I think this code runs. Well, it would cause a problem, so it missed one thing. Last name is a field that must be activated probably. So it missed a few things. A check of the row ID or using set search expression and the last name. So it's not really perfect. It's surprisingly good. And it also has an explanation of what it did. So we can use it, copy paste that and start working with that from here. So thanks, I'll take this and I know what to do. I'm an experienced eScript developer. The problem is, you can see clearly here, you're not super experienced with eScript and you just take this and you get an error because last name is not active and you're confused. You might want to paste that error into Claude, into the next prompt, and it will most likely correct that. So let's give it a chance and say, activate the last name field and use set search expression instead of set search spec. So let's see what it does with that. I'm just testing the waters here. We are in a session, so it has the context. And let's see what it comes up with. So the set search expression, it knows what to do. So it concatenates correctly. It activates the field. And, well, that will probably the final version of that eScript. So it's good enough. It has try catch finally. It applies industry practice. It has a few comments. Yeah, so that looks very good. So you see the pattern here. You give it one prompt and then you are the experienced human and you correct it, you nudge it into the right direction. So let's see how another AI performs with that task. So here I'm in ChatGPT. I have no login for ChatGPT, so just using the very public version. And I don't know what model exactly that is here, but and it's in German. So one thing you found out the hard way, even if it's trying to localize, I'm calling in from Austria, so it's talking German to me. In coding, most of the documentation is in English. There is barely a German documentation of JavaScript that is at the same quality and quantity of English. The same is true for any other language than English. So use English as the prompt language. You will get much better results. If you start using your native language, it will always be a lesser quality output. So let's see. Clean standard Siebel eScript example. It announces and it created a function which is okay. We didn't give it that context. It gets the business object, business component. It does a with, fine with that. It activates the field. Okay, that's nice. It sets the search spec. Again, they all go for the search spec, executes the query, checks for first record, and there we have the variable. It does a catch and it does a finally, and since it's a function, it returns. Okay, let's use set search expression instead of set search spec. So we do that same test that we did with Claude. And can it do it? Yeah, it creates a variable first, and then it uses that as the search expression. So looking good, ChatGPT. So again, a good prompt gives us good results that we can use and extend. It was a little bit shy on the comments, but that's simple enough code. So we could ask it to add more comments, etc. But quite happy with the results. So literally if you have to kind of change or do it yourself, change 1 or 2 lines, you already you have very high quality code. So that's the state of ChatGPT and Claude as of November 2025. I will do that test next month and next year, and it will probably be fine. So just for the fun of it, let's do another one. So here I am at Grok from XAI and going to do the same thing. Paste that prompt and Grok is thinking. Assume row ID is already defined. It does. Oops. Okay. Well, you see, even a more recent model can have a little bit of trouble there because that's not how you get the business component, right? Okay, so yeah, that happens as well. No shame. So it's just, maybe let's try a different model. Let's try the expert model. And let's just run it again. And it's thinking harder. And it's in the same session, so it's repeating, and it tells you, okay, add Siebel error handling, etc. But not happy with this. It's not proper Siebel. It's Siebel eScript, but it's not proper. There's even a big mistake here with the application get post comp. Okay, so yeah, this is what you get with the models as of 2025 in November. So yeah, prompt engineering 101. The better your prompt, the better the output. And some models are better suited for, well, Siebel eScript than others. So Grok did not really know Siebel eScript probably. So I've been using 3 different vendors now, and those are among the major AI vendors. And I've been using the web front end, just the web chat type of, prompt output. And that's fine for simple tasks like, okay, can you help me write that for loop? Something like that. We get a small code snippet, and there's that. But most of these vendors, or almost all of these vendors, the major vendors, now provide specialized AI coding tools. So they have the integration with your local file system, with Git, with Model Context Protocol, MCP servers, with your shell, with your terminal. And those tools are highly efficient in supporting developers with planning, designing, coding, testing, and deploying the whole CI/CD shebang. So that market is rapidly evolving. It started roughly a year or so ago. So there's no clear winner yet, and they are all very, very good. And those very, very good tools that are noteworthy, at least for me in the second half of 2025, again, that is very rapidly evolving, is GitHub. And that's not a ranking, it's just maybe one of the first you ever worked with was GitHub Copilot, because it's almost everywhere now, or the VS Code Copilot. And then there's Claude Code from Anthropic, which is my personal pick for various reasons. And I'm going to show you Claude Code in a moment, how I have set it up and how it assists me with a professional coding environment. There's Versal, there's OpenAI Codex, which I hear is very good. Cursor AI. Google has just recently launched an AI Studio, but it's cloud-based. So did I mention, yeah, these tools are local on your machine. Of course, they're connecting to the cloud, but they're local, and they can access the local files if you allow them. And then there are other cloud-based tools such as Lovable, Replit, Those are, I call the aggregators, because they reach out to other models. Like you can choose your model, you can use ChatGPT or Claude Sonnet and use that. So these aggregators are also very, very popular because you always have access to the latest models and you don't have to pick a vendor immediately. But even with Claude Code, for example, you can use a different vendor's model. So it's all very, very fluid. And so now we have broken down the tools, and well, there will be a quick demo of a AI-assisted coding environment, Claude Code. But what are the actual use cases? So we have seen one use case already. So basically, eScript. The use case would be generate working eScript code based on clear prompts, right? So you've seen eScript is quite challenging as not every model understands it and documentation is scarce. So you might want to help the AI, and we're getting in the eScript chapter, we will dig this all up. You can help it with code templates, with code you already have that is working, you know it's working, and it can pick up your style of coding and it can understand what's correct eScript code. But of course, in eScript, you can do anything you want in eScript. Business component queries, business service invocation, or get help with complex algorithms you have, like nested loops or something you have to do and you're not quite sure how to do it in the best possible manner in eScript. But a word of warning here, for example, those LLMs, they tend to try to be very clever with arrays and array methods, and eScript doesn't have many of those. So you have to scale it down again. So, but eScript is definitely one use case you have. So we have a lot of other use cases for a Siebel developer. So there's OpenUI, a vast area. OpenUI is mostly JavaScript, and of course, that's where those models shine. So it's just such a pleasure to work with those models in JavaScript because they know their stuff. And I've been writing JavaScript for almost 30 years, and JavaScript is rapidly evolving. It's ECMA 2025, modern class-based JavaScript, and those models, they know it all. So if you struggle with modernizing your styling, your code styling, your style of coding, then get help from the AI and you learn from it. So the AI can learn from you, but you learn a lot from the AI while working with it. But you have to look at the code, of course, which is what the responsible developer does. So for example, you will see in the OpenUI chapter how to build a dialogue with a modern framework such as Shoelace or native HTML. And that really provides a powerful UX choice. The same is true for CSS, for style sheets. Just long story short, those models, they know their stuff in terms of one of the most well-documented languages, CSS, on the web. And there are so many examples you can just pull, like color schemes. A dark mode for Siebel is a matter of a few minutes or even seconds for an LLM. And then there's the realm of the code that you write as a Siebel developer, but it's very exotic for most of us. If you're not a Java developer, if you don't come from that area, then many of us shy away from writing Java business services, but they can do a ton of good. They run on the Tomcat 64-bit Java, super fast. So if you struggle with eScript business services and you want to do some very complex processing, you might want to look into Java business services. And of course, Java is one of the most used and well-documented languages on the web. You know the drill. The LLMs know that stuff. Java Business Service, only one area. There's JDB, JCA connectors, if you know what that is. DISA extensions, extensions for test automation. Yes, you can write them in Java, do your Selenium stuff. Siebel test automation, that is. I recently wrote a custom HTTP client as a Java Business Service. I had no idea how to do that, honestly. And Claude Code performed the task for me and created a very good Java Business Service that is now used in production. So what other types of code do you write as a Siebel developer? Well, you will maybe type or write the occasional shell script on the terminal. So for example, you work with the Siebel REST API, you want to test that, probably use something like curl, or you want to do some test automation, want to do some quick testing beyond Siebel test automation, or you haven't set it up, monitoring, reading log files. So you have those shell scripts in place probably, but improving the shell scripts or creating good shell scripts, PowerShell in Windows and Bash in Linux, those languages are again super well documented, and it's a no-brainer to use AI. And then we have produced a lot of code already. For example, that OpenUI physical renderer from 2017, and that is, well, acting up in the most recent version of Siebel, and you want to, well, analyze it, review it, modernize it, make it safer, make it better, add comments, generate the documentation on all the OpenUI stuff. Well, AI, that's a use case for AI if there isn't any. My own personal use case I had recently was optimizing JavaScript that I wrote to read big files and do stuff with big files in the browser, and it was very slow. And I put the code to Claude and say, okay, help me with that, help me optimize that. And the next version of that code, the performance problem was gone, and I had learned another thing about JavaScript. Documentation is a key. So we have documentation here quite often. So as a general use case, whenever you need to generate documentation, put in the files, let the AI analyze it, summarize it, review it, categorize it, create a nice document. That's what they're really good at. I mean, they're good with words, right? It's a large language model, after all. But they're also good at generating code that visualizes code. So you can use tools like Mermaid. If you haven't looked into Mermaid, Google it. So Mermaid is something that you can use to visualize, create visualization diagrams of existing repository stuff like workflow processes, or document your code and understand the code flow better. And then there's the whole area of integration. That's a separate chapter we would have to do, where it doesn't really stop at this, but it's a good starting point. You are tasked, for example, get the odd CSV file, and you need to import it in Siebel. And you want to convert that to JSON to do it with REST, which I did in the past. So you can do it manually, but it's it's a dumb task, right? To read CSV, convert it to JSON. The AI can do that in seconds. And Claude even generated a HTML page where I can just drop the CSV and it produces the JSON for download. And I have some options to check. So you can create your own tools very quickly to do that conversion. Or if you struggle with XML or XSLT, if you have integration using that, generate your XSLT style sheets. And of course, not stopping there. Integration, you have so many things where AI can really help. While you use AI, you learn a lot, and you can even expand that knowledge. So summarizing any word cluster that you find, including bookshelf documents, making more sense, extracting the things that matter to you, and also inspirational work with LLMs. They are word generators, so they can generate words that inspire you, and that means ask it for its opinion, ask it for the best options to do something, or provide some examples and let it have at it, generate different variations. That's what LLMs are really great. And the last but not least one, in the future, maybe the future of Siebel is to that even metadata is generated with AI. So I'm thinking out loud of CIF files that are generated or direct writing to the repository. There's MCP servers that can do that. Maybe in 1 year from now we have something. Not just saying, but you can do it today. You can probably generate a CIF file if you prompt hard enough. So that's of course a very hard task. But generating metadata is the next big thing for Siebel developers, that you just prompt, create a few, do this and that. These are the applets I want. These are the fields that I want, and it just goes. The future is wide open. We are at the cusp. We are actually in the middle of a revolution that is, for me, I'm saying it once more, is very much like the internet revolution, very much like the internet was here to stay, and it is now a part of our daily technological life. We cannot go without it. AI will have the same status in 30 years from now. This will be mind-boggling to see, but even next year, what next year will bring will boggle our minds and ghast our flabbers and all of that. So to bring it to an end, let's do a quick demo, and I'll show you around my Claude Code environment, and let's do a bit of prompting. And let's see an application that I built for the purpose of this class, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So come over. So yeah, here is Visual Studio Code, and you see on the left, you see my folder, and you can see that in that folder I have plenty of subfolders. There's a Claude subfolder, there's a Playwright MCP. Oh yeah, Playwright. Oh, don't get me started. There's a source folder, there's a styles folder, there's test results, there's a tests folder. So you can see what I'm doing here. Source folder is all the code, docs is documentation, style sheets, testing with Playwright. Claude has its own resources here, the agents that I have. And there's some other files here which are just leftovers from the project. So this is a very complex application that you will see in a moment, that I created to demonstrate how to connect to Siebel REST API and provide a nice user interface using Shoelace, one of the frameworks that I like. And I've been making this over the past few weeks, few hours every day, or sometimes leaving out a few days. So it's on and off. So, here you see in the middle, you see my Claude window, or let's just make that bigger. So I'm using the Claude Code extension. So here for VS Code, you can use a Claude Code extension. Of course, you need an account with Anthropic. You need to pay for that because those things, they gobble up tokens like breakfast. And I also use Claude Code usage, so I'm abreast of my usage. And every major vendor has a plugin for Visual Studio Code, of course. And Visual Studio Code comes with its own AI, so I can also use that, but the Copilots, but I'm not using that. So I'm using Claude Code extension. And what this does is it gains access to that folder I have opened. So it is in full control of the files here. So let's first see the app I've created over the course of a few hours with Claude, and it has fully documented it. So here's the app. It's called Hubbub. It is a standalone web app that can connect to the Siebel REST API. So I can log in with a Siebel user. So and all the code you see, with the exception of 1 or 2 lines I had to change manually, is all generated by Claude code. So no human interaction. I wanted to really prove that. Can you create a professional application? And it's not just professional looking, it is secure, it uses the Siebel REST API properly, it is aware, performance aware, and it uses a UX framework that really renders professional results. So that's just a login page, and I log in, and it's just a password that wasn't safe. You can see there's a metadata cache. So because, well, I have an app that shows on this first dashboard page, shows recent accounts, so account data from Siebel, shows opportunity data from Siebel, obviously, big opportunities filtered somehow. So this is my dashboard where I can put on any kind of list that is accessible data from the REST API. I can create charts on it if I want to, etc. So that's the dashboard, and I have my menu. And this is all done with Shoelace, by the way, so if you're interested in that. And I have accounts, contact, service, and opportunities. I can go into these areas. And you also see some tools like ad hoc queries, ad hoc record creation, call a business service, call a workflow, and a configuration page. So, of course, all of this is generated by AI. It's a lot of JavaScript that uses Shoelace to render these things on the screen. Yeah, I can switch to light mode, I can switch to dark mode, I can compact the display, boomer style, for example. Here I have a logout button, so let's go to accounts. And you see nice skeleton animation, and that's the account list. I have some action buttons. I can view the account data in a dialog. I can have an edit dialog, and here it gets interesting that when you create an application like that, you want it to be interactive. So it's not just query, it's CRUD, it's create, read, update, delete. And when you update or create records in Siebel, well, you need your LOVs straight, and it gets these LOVs from Siebel. That's the metadata cache you have seen. So for every field that has an LOV, it fetches the active LOVs here. So let's change that account status to active, for example, and let's change the location, and let's just click save and see what happens. And well, we got record updated successfully, so let's refresh that. And we can see, yeah, it's active, HQ test 7. So that has been successfully updated in Siebel, of course. And also, now you can feel playful. So is there a sorting? Yes, I implemented sorting by clicking on the columns. You can, for example, also sort by status first and then sort by name. So you can do a sequential sorting, and there's a filter, and the filter is, I can apply whatever style I want. The filter is using the correct LOVs or just text fields. For example, name starting with M. Let's do something simple. Apply that, and yeah, it retrieves that data starting with M, obviously. Okay, so I can remove that filter, I can modify that filter. I can even switch to expert mode. That's not really implemented yet. So let's go to another page, for example, service. And this is also something that I like to do is I call it AI inception. So this whole application is generated with AI. It's a vibe-coded application if you want to. And it uses AI to generate that sentiment. So that's the sentiment of the abstraction and description fields of the service request. And you have seen it took a while to calculate that. And by the way, you would probably be interested how I calculate that sentiment. It uses a model that is loaded into the browser Yes. So the browser is running an LLM right now and generating that sentiment. What a time to be alive. And no data is sent anywhere. That is a local model in the browser. Just saying Hugging Face. Thank you, Hugging Face. Okay, so we are going to explore this in more depth. I just want to show you what can be done with a few hours. I don't have the exact numbers. Let's say 20 to 30 hours of work with Claude Code, and it gives you that type of application. And I always want my applications to be generic, so there's no hard coding. I can configure all these pages and their content in the configuration. So I have the dashboard lists. You can see that account and opportunity list. I have the menu pages. Here you can see the field definitions for the account. And you can see the contacts and service definitions. So that is all defined. And the storage for that you can choose, but I'm planning to store it back to the Siebel application, the Siebel database. So that can be either user-based, it can be user-based, you can add fields, etc. as a user. Or you can even create your own lists and pages. So down here is the metadata cache. And I can add a new list, for example. And with the Siebel REST API at my disposal, I can, for example, after providing an ID, let's just put in some pages. I want to do a menu page, and let's just create a business object and component like action. And now I can load the fields from the schema, and it loaded 460 plus fields. That's a big integration object behind action or activity. And all these fields are available now for multi-selection. Let me just randomly select a few fields. You can see they're added here. And that's how it's done, right? So those drop-downs are populated from the vast array of metadata in Siebel. It pulls the LOVs, etc. It knows what about the objects and the fields, and it generates its own metadata from that. Okay, so I'm not going to save that. Just want to show you this application is entirely configurable. So you see it's not just a hard-coded REST query. That would be too easy, right? And yeah, to top it off, I can do an ad hoc query. So for example, let's run a very brutal query on the action business component, pulling the first 50 records here. Takes a while because I haven't specified any fields, so it's a lot of fields. So we're just really testing, does the Siebel REST API stand up to this? And it does. It says found 50 records, and here, well, that's the list you don't want to show your users, but it's all the possible fields that are populated. I'm using a only show the populated fields option here. But you have actions here. You can start working with that data. So that's good when you plan out your next page. You can see the list of fields and maybe even, be creative from within that list here. You can maybe just check the fields you want and then say create new page. So that's a feature that you might want to implement with Claude Code. And well, let's implement that in one of the next sessions maybe. Okay, so yeah, it's a lot. So that's a application created 99.999% with AI. The code is maintained by Claude Code. I did the prompting. I interacted with Claude Code over the course of several days, work days. And in that course, we have created documents. We have created plans. Remember the planning phase? So for example, here's the plan for that Claude generated for the metadata caching. And this is a very detailed plan with code templates and suggestions, and finally the steps and future enhancement and checklists that it has. So it keeps updating those documents as we go. There's a big to-do list where I put in my ideas and what I want to do next. So, well, to finish that, if you still want to watch, I'll add that idea I just had to the to-do list. So it has the to-do list open. It's in plan mode. I switch to edit automatically. And I say add to the to-do MD, so I can reference the file again just to be sure. Implement an improvement for the show record details dialog, allowing the user to select fields and click a create page button. This should be available from the, what's it called? Query data page. So always be specific. Okay, so I ask it to do that. Again, I'm maintaining the to-do MD, but I let Claude do it. So Claude adds it over the time, adds it to its session context, and it can read that. So I just let it run so you see how Claude Code interacts with the file. And I've chosen edit automatically, so it does it. You can also prevent it from doing that, showing you the stuff first. And so it has edit that feature here. Enhance show record details dialog with create page feature. And I can review that and make changes later. So, and later on, I'm going to ask it to implement that feature, so then I can test it and provide feedback. Okay, so that's the environment I'm using today at the time of recording, Visual Studio Code with the Claude Code extension. Claude Code also exists as a terminal option, so I want to show you that in case you're interested. So I'm going to launch my Windows PowerShell. And I can go, for example, to the same folder. So you have to be in a folder. And then I can type Claude, and what Visual Studio Code does automatically is it continues. So it picks up the last conversation on the session. And you see it picks up the same context from the current session in Visual Studio Code, even with that addition. So here I have a more rudimentary terminal-based prompt, but still interactive. I can drag and drop files into there. I can drag and drop screenshots, and I can, for example, see my current usage. So let's see how much usage we have today. So let's clear that. And so you have slash commands, they call it. For example, there's a command called usage, and it displays, well, I used 2% of my quota in the current session and 9%. So I have 91% left for the current week. I used a lot of the Opus model. So what model are we using? currently using the Sonnet model with a large context window, 1 million tokens context window. I can switch to the Opus or the default, which is Sonnet again, or Haiku model. And you can also integrate with other model vendors. And I have my MCPs, my MCP servers here. I've only one at the moment, which is Playwright, which is a very cool MCP server if you want to look into that for your personal pleasure. Okay, so yeah, that's Claude Code to introduce you to an environment that I've been using actively over the past weeks and months to create, I would say, a sophisticated application that connects to the Siebel REST API, which I've shown you. And I use this tool to do that. And of course, going back to our initial conversation, I am an experienced Siebel developer. I know my stuff with the Siebel REST API. I teach the Siebel REST API. Yes, we do teach it on Siebel Hub. Go to siebelhub.com and find the REST API class. And so I was teaching Claude how to use the Siebel REST API, but then it picked that up and I told it to use Shoelace, and it created that application together with me. So we are a team. Sounds a little bit spooky to anthropomorphize maybe the AI a little bit too much. So Claude is not my buddy. It's a tool I'm using, but I'm pairing up with that tool. I can enter in a sort of conversation with that tool. And for me, as a boomer developer who started typing text in Notepad, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Java, and then using IDEs and always crafting the code by yourself with some assistance over the years. But now this AI-assisted coding is changing the way we work, not just with Siebel, not just with code, but it's going to change the way we are working in IT. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this session. And if you made it all the way here, we are planning to do this, to convert all this in a proper training class on the Siebel Hub. We are yet about to find out what we should include. And if you want something to be included specifically in this course or in our content on the Siebel Hub about AI and how to use AI with Siebel, find the comments and let us know what you want. And we are always here to teach you the highest quality of Siebel trainings. Go Siebel!